The modern sports landscape has changed drastically over the past 20 years or so. Nearly every traditional televised sport has grown exponentially, and the leagues are seeing their businesses grow at levels they have never seen before. The NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL even, all of them are generating revenue at an insane rate. There is one league, or organization more so, that I left out of the initial list, the NCAA. I left the NCAA out because it is supposed to be just a governing body that oversees collegiate athletics, but it seems to have taken a different path, and at this point it has a revenue flow that is comparable to a professional sports league. The only difference is, it obviously isn't a professional sports league, so the players aren't being compensated for their time. In fact, there's a plethora of NCAA written bylaws that make it impossible for the players to make money. The worst part about it all is that it isn't just that the NCAA prohibits schools from compensating its Division I student athletes who commit massive amounts of time to their programs comparable to a full-time job. It is the fact that the NCAA prohibits these athletes from even making money off of their own likeness. How insane is that? Former UCLA and now NFL quarterback Josh Rosen summed the real student-athlete experience up well. Look, football and school don't go together, they just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do two full-time jobs. It is a set of responsibilities that is hard for normal students and civilians to understand. Besides, just for playing collegiate sports, you basically have to sign away your right to provide for yourself and or your family. It makes zero sense, especially when you take a look behind the scenes and see how much time and hard work goes into being a Division I college athlete. Check out the results of this crazy study that was done by the National Labor Relations Board back in 2014. It shows that players at major college football programs spend 50 to 60 hours per week on their football duties during a 1-month training camp prior to the start of the academic year, and an additional 40 to 50 hours per week on those duties during the 3 or 4-month football season. That sure sounds like a full-time employee deserving of some compensation, if you ask me. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to all athletes. I mean, let's be honest, a D1 football or basketball player will generate a lot more revenue for its school than just about anyone else on campus. And even within that upper echelon of players that have the ability to monetize themselves, there are a series of big-time gaps between what each guy is actually worth. This has been an ongoing discussion surrounding NCAA athletes for a while now, but it has recently reemerged as one of the hottest topics after California announced its Fair Pay to Play Act. Governor Gavin Newsom's decision to sign this law made California the first state to require major financial reforms in college athletics. The law sought to give college athletes back their right to earn money off of endorsement deals, brand alignments, anything that leveraged their likeness. Newsom explained his perspective to the Los Angeles Times in a fair but purposeful way. I have deep reverence, deep respect for the NCAA and college athletics. I just think the system has been perverted, and this is fundamentally about rebalancing things. It's about equity, it's about fairness, and it's about time. This obviously prompted the NCAA to respond, especially as other states continue to propose similar measures to pressure the NCAA, a billion-dollar organization, to allow these student athletes to earn what is rightfully theirs. Their response was painfully broad, and it painted the NCAA in a rather vulnerable way, which is not a position it typically finds itself in. And while nothing else has substantiated in any other state yet, expect a sweeping legislation to follow. These states and schools are not going to let California have that big of a leg up in the recruiting game. There's just too much money to be made off of these student athletes to risk losing their premier recruits that will follow the money. So at this point, it isn't entirely clear what the landscape of collegiate sports will look like in the next 5 to 10 years, but at the very least, it is good to see that the states are getting involved. This should get the ball rolling in the right direction, similar to the talk that arose from the Northwestern University football players who attempted to unionize seeking a cash salary back in 2017. All of this discussion has led to some pretty interesting speculation about which college athletes from which schools would be able to earn the most money, and how much they really stand to earn. Basically, what is fair market value for this elite group of athletes, specifically college football players? Let's break it down. College football is a big business for the top universities. They stand to profit off of ticket sales, media rights, branding, licensing, and countless other revenue streams that end up bringing in millions of dollars a year for certain programs. And this is why people are so up in arms about the players getting paid. Sure, it is great that they are afforded things like gear, travel meals, and scholarships, but when there is this much money coming in, and so many people are lining their pockets off of the athletes' elite talent and hard work, it makes zero sense that they wouldn't see at least some of the profits. It is insane that it has taken this long, but now that the revenue has ballooned so much, the topic has become unavoidable, much to the chagrin of the NCAA executives. So let's assume the Division I college football players negotiated a collective bargaining agreement similar to what the NFL has in place, which divvies up 47% of the total revenue generated for the players. According to Business Insider, the fair market value for the average FBS football players is about $163,000. And while the NCAA apologists love to talk until they are blue in the face about the free education and all of that, I am sure that any of these guys would be more than happy to collect their fair market value, pay for their schooling, and use the leftover money for whatever they please. This is also working off of the assumption that the players would collectively bargain their wages. And while this would be more than likely the case, some of these guys at the more prestigious football schools stand to earn way more than $163,000. Based off of the same revenue sharing model, the players at Auburn, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia, LSU, and Notre Dame would all be over $400,000. The players at Tennessee, Michigan, and Alabama would all take in over $500,000. And interestingly, the highest paid college football players would hail from the University of Texas. Longhorn football players would stand to earn over $650,000. Those numbers are simply astronomical. It's more money than many people even see in their lifetimes. What makes it so important that these guys get paid, for many of them, this could be the only window they have to earn money off of their talent. While they all obviously dream of making it to the NFL, where they would stand to make millions of dollars, for many of these guys, it just isn't realistic. NCAA data shows that of the 73,660 young men playing major Division I college football, just 1.5% will ever play in the NFL. And that is what really makes this scam that the NCAA has been carrying out so perverse. It is telling these guys that it is more important for the organization's execs to net huge salaries than for the athletes to capitalize on their talent while the opportunity is still in front of them. So the idea is that the players would receive their fair share of revenue they bring in, and the salary estimations that we've mentioned are only accounting for that. A lot of the country's best players have such strong followings as individuals and legitimate personal brands, and those guys could really start to rake it in if they could seek endorsement opportunities or profit off of their own likeness. Look at someone like Baker Mayfield, for example. Once he was able to break out of the financial shackles that the NCAA had on him, corporations and brands everywhere began swarming him, all wanting to get his endorsement. After being selected number 1 overall in the 2017 NFL Draft, Baker started inking some of the most lucrative rookie endorsement deals out there because his likeness is so immensely valuable. Mayfield is now involved in several brand endorsements and advertisements. Nike has provided the Heisman winner with a statement headband that became a personal signature for Mayfield. This was a pretty natural partnership, as Nike has had a deal that pays Oklahoma, Mayfield's alma mater, over $5 million every year. Mayfield's electric personality has generated a plethora of other endorsement opportunities, ones that transcend the typical athlete. He has deals with companies like Allen Edmonds, luxury fashion brand that wouldn't normally target athletes. But that's the thing about a lot of these guys. Their tremendous following is worth it for these companies. And it makes no sense that they wouldn't be allowed to capitalize on this while they are still in college. I mean, it is their likeness. There are no rules that prevent regular students from making money off of their personal Instagram accounts or anything like that. So why has the NCAA remained insistent that their players remain strictly student athletes who rely on the schools for their food, their education, and their housing, rather than letting them earn their worth on the open market? Well, that is because the NCAA is running scared. It is afraid that its cash cow is beginning to teeter out, and that if states continue to pass these kinds of laws, it could spell doom for them. And that's because big-time college football cannot function without holding thousands of young men captive into what has become an increasingly bad economic bargain for the players. If the schools had to pay players, it would undeniably threaten and maybe even kill the college aspect of NCAA football and reveal it for the exploitative NFL minor league system that truly is. That is what makes this whole system so messed up. The NCAA was created to organize and facilitate collegiate athletics, not just profit hand over fist from it. The organization should serve the players, but instead they have hamstrung their earning capabilities and left them hanging out to dry. And honestly, what might be the absolute worst part of this whole situation, besides how much money the NCAA makes, is that the NCAA and universities have no problem letting the head coaches of these elite Division I programs make millions and millions of dollars each season. Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher and Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh both make over $7 million. Nick Saban, longtime Alabama Crimson Tide head coach, makes over $8 million. And perhaps worst of all, Clemson head coach and tiresomely hypocritical human being Dabo Swinney recently signed a 10-year contract worth $93 million. Yeah, the same guy who has consistently spoke out against the players earning their worth has no problem with checks being cashed, as long as they have his name on it, of course. Listen to what he had to say about kids being paid. As far as paying players, professionalizing college athletics, that is where you lose me. I'll go do something else because there's enough entitlement in this world as it is. Yeah, okay, Dabo. Keep taking your fat paychecks to the bank and keeping your players in the poorhouse. It has to catch up with you eventually. As far as the NCAA and hypocritical coaches like Swinney are concerned, hopefully progressive states like California will put enough pressure on them to bow out and let players get paid what they're worth. Once that happens, you will be amazed at how much money your favorite players are making. And I, for one, can't wait for that to happen. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to click the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate that. And last but not least, don't forget to tune into TPS every single day for more cool videos.